listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be back with you. I am being closely monitored and supervised.
Hello, everyone.
Well, not as closely as usual. You're sitting way over there tonight for some reason. But anyway, it has been a month since we've been with you, and a lot has happened. We were up visiting some family, watching our oldest granddaughter graduate from high school with whatever honors it is that she graduated with.
With all of them.
She will be starting college this fall. Her orientation is sometime coming up, but well on her way. I don't know what else to say about her. You know, she's got a good head on her shoulders. She'll do all right. That's, you know, and when you can say that about a young person today, that says a lot. It really, really does. Anyway, we did that, spent some time with family. Had something very unexpected happen. The local farm store down here on Saturdays has people that come in with different various types of animals, and we very unplanned brought home a puppy. If you happen to be on one of the social medias that I'm on, MeWe or the Tor Network, her picture is on there, and if she is as smart as she is cute, she should make a very good dog eventually. With lots of attention and lots of training. You know, train them up in the way that they should go, and they will not depart from it, right?
Let's hope.
Hopefully it works with dogs as well as it does children. Lots and lots of stuff going on. And while we were away, I came up with a whole lot of things to talk about, because when you're around other people, you hear their input, you hear their questions, you hear their concerns, you figure out what you need to address because you are involved with other people. So you get to hear what's happening. And one of the things that we're going to get to tonight is one of the things that I overheard. But before I get to that, I want to make sure that if you haven't been to Give God 90 lately, you want to check that out. Another website is author Jerry Mitchell. If you want to check that out, that's where all the books are available in one place, in all their glory. Yes, I say that sarcastically.
Also available in hardback.
Also available in hardback now. Yes, they are. And audiobook. What else is going on? There's been so much. I know I'm going to forget something. But if you like what you hear, you know, don't be afraid of those share buttons. We've had, for some reason, a huge jump as we do often when the seasons change. For some reason, we get this huge jump in our listening audience, and that's not a bad thing. It just means that
we love to have everybody on.
It just means that people have time to listen. They have time to check us out, and hopefully, you'll learn something. Maybe. I hope. And enjoy yourself along the way.
Absolutely.
So, you know, this isn't meant to be drudgery. It's not meant, you know, Scripture's not meant to be problematic. It's meant to instruct. It's meant to not so much entertain, but be entertaining as it instructs. So, there's a lot more to it, as you're about to find out, than what meets the eye sometimes. Something I heard was about doorways and gates. And we take them for granted. You know, our world today, people walk in and out of doorways almost without thought. You know, how many times have you been to a place, there's a sign on the door, says something, and you don't even pay attention to it? Maybe you've heard, if you walk into a room and all of a sudden you can't remember why you're there, go back through the door. There's a reason for that. Because doorways and gates, while they're not mystical, they're not magical, there is a sense of going through a door that you may not realize it consciously, but your soul, your spirit, your subconscious, whatever you want to call it, it realizes that you have moved from one place to another. Passing through a door or a gate is much, much more than entering or exiting a building or a room, a yard, or a garden, depending on what it is. Doorways and gates are very important in the Bible. So why don't we think about them today? Nobody, I shouldn't say it that way, practically no one thinks very much about them. Now, we were in a church years ago, and over the door of this church, as you leave the sanctuary, it said, "Now entering the mission field." And I thought to myself, well, maybe some of those missions need to come in here because what I heard in there wasn't very scriptural. But anyway, things like that, people, they might read it once and they forget it's there. Like I said, you see signs on doors and you don't even pay attention to them. Signage anymore means very, very little. If you've driven in the United States, what does a stop sign mean to you? And that's not even a door or a gate. It's kind of weird. Cities in the United States no longer have gates, right? There might be a sign up that says entering someplace, the name of the city. States on highways have signs that says when you're entering this certain state. When I was in Europe, if you left a country and went into another country, there was a border crossing, and you had to stop and make sure that you were okay to enter that country. That's why we have passports. And I'm not even going to get into the immigration thing here. Okay, I don't have to. That's not necessary for what we're talking about. Doorways and gates are extremely important in the Bible. And now, I've spoken about what we call the threshold covenant often. And it's something we use every day without even thinking about it. And I'm going to try to make this easy. If you go to visit someone and they let you into their home, you are actually in an agreement with a threshold covenant. You go up to somebody's house, you knock on the door, or announce yourself, "Hey, I'm here." However it works, wherever you're from. Someone inside the home, they come, they greet you, or they call, "Come in," whatever it is. The implication is that they want you to enter. Now, the person in the home, when they greet you, you have actually performed all three parameters of a covenant. The arrangement is, of course, when you announce yourself and the person comes. The agreement is when you are invited in. And the confirmation of that covenant is when you step either through the doorway, across the threshold, through the gate, whatever it might be. That's how a covenant works. There's three things you have to have. You have to have the arrangement, the agreement, and the confirmation. By entering that home or even a business, excuse me, you actually agree to abide by the rules that the owner of the house has already established. And if you violate those rules, if you break that covenant, The punishment for violating a threshold covenant is you're no longer welcome there. You have to leave. And the owner of the home, the owner of the business, whatever it might be, the owner of the garden, the gate, the kingdom, whatever it might be, that is the person who sets the rules. And more about that later. Excuse me. I had a sneezing fit a while ago, and it's still kind of with me. Now, the first place in the Bible we see anything about a door is in Genesis 4:7. Excuse me. That's kind of rough. Excuse me. In Genesis 4:7, Cain has just killed Abel. And what we see is, as the Almighty's talking to him, he tells Cain, if you do what's right, will you not be accepted? Well, that's pretty basic, right? If you refuse to do what's right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires you, but you must master it. Now, where's the door? Where's the door? Right? What this indicates to us, what this implies to us, what we should infer from it, is that sin and evil are waiting for us. And they're waiting for us just outside of the protection that comes when we follow the words of the Creator. By extension, we could easily say sin and evil are waiting for us on the other side of where we should feel the most safe, whether that's inside our home or whether that is in the will and the desire, the thoughts that our Creator has for us. When we're outside of that, we're no longer under that protection. When we stray away, when we leave, when we reject, when we refuse to follow the words of the Creator, at that point, what happens is we are no longer in that agreement, in that arrangement, in that covenant with Him. And He no longer has the responsibility to protect us. He no longer has the responsibility to accept us. He wants to, but remember, we are the ones who rejected Him. So, keep that in mind, because this is all going to come together in just a few minutes. There is another place a door is famously mentioned in passage. So, actually, why don't you go ahead and read that passage while I get a drink of water.
Later, the Lord again appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre. At that time, Abraham was sitting at the door of his tent. It was during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When Abraham saw them, he ran out from his tent to meet them. He bowed face down on the ground before them. Genesis 18, verses 1 and 2.
So, maybe I better start here. Tradition tells us that the tent of Abraham was open. If you're familiar with tents around 4,000 years ago in the Middle East, they were made in such a way that the walls could be raised. If you have ever been to or seen a Jewish or Messianic wedding, the huppah is a representation of the tent of Abraham. It's basically 4 open sides and some sort of roof or ceiling type thing. A lot of times they're fabric, sometimes they're lace, sometimes they're interwoven ivies and flowers, or some of them are really intricate and pretty. But they're meant to mimic or to give the illustration of Abraham's tent with all the sides up. So, 4,000 years ago, if you lived in a tent and it was hot and you wanted some breeze, well, you needed more than just a door. You needed some windows too. So they would raise the sides and get some of that breeze going through. We read in Genesis that on this particular day, Abraham was sitting by the door. It should be pretty obvious that the sides were not raised on this particular day. I should probably mention here too that there's speculation that these tents were not necessarily square. They might not have been a rectangular shape. They could very well have been round. Kind of, if you think about an Indian teepee type thing, but that's not a good illustration of that. They had sort of poles that went up, and then the roof would slope up towards the center. But you could do that with one long piece of fabric. You just sort of started at the top and rolled it around. And then you could, the door, of course, would be overlapping. So it would not necessarily be secure, but it would be closed where no one could see in or out. He was sitting next to the door, so the sides were down. I should probably say here that the information where we have that from, there's about equal information that says some were square and some were round. However, there's some archaeological evidence that most of the Hebraic dwellings were more often round than square once they left Egypt. So, just saying. Throwing that out there for information purposes. Whatever shape, Abraham was sitting by the door. He looks up and he sees 3 people coming. Well, he didn't just sit there and wait for them. He gets up and goes out to greet them. These 3 men who were approaching had already entered what we could say was Abraham's yard, however big it was. They had crossed a boundary, or were about to cross a boundary, that Abraham considered important. He goes out to greet them and establishes a threshold covenant. Isn't that amazing? Something we never think about, something most people never hear, something that I don't know what percentage of people don't ever think of this. Abraham sees them crossing a boundary that he considers important, and he goes out to greet them. He wants to establish that covenant as quickly as possible. He greets them, and the rest is, as we say, history. I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but there's another famous gate that's mentioned in the Bible. Christians, pay some very particular attention to this. There will be a test much later in your life if you want to read that next passage.
Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds, and to him who knocks the door will be open. Which of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for fish, will you give him a snake? So if you who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him? In everything then do to others as you would have them do to you. For this is the essence of the law and the prophets. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow is the way that leads to life, and only a few find it. Matthew chapter 7, verse 7 through 14.
Okay. Why a narrow gate? You know, if the wide gate leads to destruction, what purpose does a narrow gate serve? Have you ever thought of that? Have you ever considered why that gate is so narrow? Why is it considered a narrow gate? Our Creator greets us as individuals. Each of us needs to find that narrow gate. We need to agree to the parameters of the covenant that our Creator has established. A large group can't pass through it together. It has to be done as an individual. It doesn't matter what denomination you belong to. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to do it as an individual. You know, being a direct descendant of Abraham does not ensure that you're going to enter that narrow gate. Being a Gentile does not mean that you're going to be kept out because of who you are. As long as you agree to the terms of the parameters established by our Creator, you will be welcomed into His garden and later into His home, a home that He has already prepared for us. But you have to be willing to abide, you have to be willing to live by His rules. And I have to remind you, His rules are not going to change. They've been exactly the same since He spoke the first time. And that brings us to another set of gates that are equally important, especially if you haven't been paying attention in the past. Would you like to read that next passage?
The angel carried me away by the Spirit to a very large and high mountain. He showed me the holy city, Jerusalem. It was coming down out of heaven from God. It was shining with the glory of God. It was shining bright like a very expensive jewel, like a jasper. It was clear as crystal. The city had a great high wall with gates. There were 12 angels at the gates. On each gate was written the name of one of the 12 tribes of Israel. There were 3 gates on the east, 3 on the north, 3 on the south, 3 on the west. Revelations 21, verses 10 through 13.
Okay. Why were there angels at the gates? Anybody know? Glad you asked, because I'm about to tell you. The angels at the gates of the city of the New Jerusalem are given the authority to make the threshold covenant with the ones who desire to enter the city. Hopefully, by this time, you've passed through the narrow gate, you've gotten into the yard. Here's where you enter the house. And you have options of which door to go through, which gate to go through. The angels are there to greet you. The angels are there because they have the authority to either let you in, or if you reject, at this point, if you reject the words of the Creator, they can prevent you from entering. And just like every good sales pitch, but wait, there's more. You want to read that last passage for us?
Those who wash their robes will be blessed. They will have the right to eat the fruit of the tree of life. They may go through the gates into the city. Outside the city are the evil people, those who do evil magic, who are sexually immoral, who murder, who worship idols, and who love lies and tell lies. Revelations chapter 22, verses 14 and 15.
It's kind of odd to hear that after we read about the gates of the New Jerusalem, isn't it? Now, it doesn't mean that outside of the city of New Jerusalem that will be on the new earth, this is actually meant as a precursor. This is a parenthetical phrase. If you've not been living the way you're designed to live, you will not be happy. You will not be blessed. And you will not be considered to be an inhabitant of the New Jerusalem. You see, if you fail to make a covenant with the Creator as an individual, you don't get in. It's that simple. You know, we often talk about sin. That's one thing. But what you also have to do is agree to abide by His rules, His law, His regulations. If you violate that, you don't get in. If you violate the covenant, you don't get in. You're out. You see, just like the title of my second book, this is still God's universe. We're going to be judged by His rules. Not ours, not your denominations, not your family, not your friends. His rules. Now, I've often wondered why there would be a need for a tree on the new earth, in the new city, the tree of life, that has leaves for healing of the nations, healing of the people. Why is that needed in the New Jerusalem? Because mankind will always find a way to disagree about certain concepts, certain ideas, certain things. But in the New Jerusalem, we're going to have access to the ultimate authority. And His resolution is final. It's His answer. What He says goes. These leaves, you know, after we debate, okay, you know, not the way we debate on a cursed earth, but differently, civilly. After we debate, when the discussion's over, if anyone refuses to accept the sacred word of our Creator, they will be removed. They will be removed. He's not going to put up with sin anymore. He's not going to put up with our petty, selfish, how many other negative adjectives can I describe here? He's not going to put up with that anymore. He's done. And we don't have to either. But those leaves are for the healing that comes from that. When we pass through His gates, through His doors, we will be held accountable if we violate His covenant. See, He's not going to violate it. He has no need to, He has no desire to, and He's not going to. We're the ones who mess up. When his judgment comes down, you don't get to appeal it to anybody else. There's nothing left. It's non-negotiable at that point. It's up to us to live the way He designed us to live. Or, plain and simply, we're not going to be welcome in His house. Doors and gates are that important. And I haven't even touched on the elders at the gate. I haven't touched on the slave who agrees to become basically a family member and stands at the doorpost of the home and has a awl driven through his ear to put an earring in it, and the ring on his finger gets put on his finger. Haven't even touched on that. Don't need to, because I hope you understand how important doors and gates are. Something to remember comes from Deuteronomy. Hear, Israel, Jehovah, our God, Jehovah is one. You will love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your might. These words which I have commanded you this day will be in your heart, and you will teach them diligently to your children. You will talk about them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you get up. You will bind them for a sign on your hand. They will be as frontlets between your eyes. You keep them in front of you. And you will write them on the posts of your house and on your gates. Doors and gates are that important. Doors and gates are something that we have to pass through every day. Are you looking for the narrow gate? Are you looking to enter into that threshold covenant with your Creator? There's way more to it than you ever thought. But it's easy because all you have to do is live the way you're designed to live. It's not that difficult. Twice Yeshua, Jesus is recorded as saying, "Go and sin no more." If it was difficult, would he just say it as kind of some offhand remark? No, he wouldn't, because it is that easy. And if you do that, you will find yourself having a much easier time making that covenant, because you don't get into the New Jerusalem without it. Told you might learn something tonight if you listen real good. Well, that was really good English, wasn't it? So, until Monday, everyone, we do wish you many, many blessings.
Absolutely.